Hello, viewers. Welcome to the Leader Quip talk show. And today we are honored to have Reverend John Omolo as our guest. He's a pastor, he's been a lecturer at university, and he's been chairing several business membership organizations and also consulted for several international development bodies. And we are honored to have him around. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and karibu sana, Reverend John Omolo.
Thank you, Joseph.
Wow. So this is Leader Quip, and our audience wants to know, who is John Omolo?
Well, hello everyone. John Omolo is an ordinary Kenyan, born and raised up in this country, born to Bishop Jonathan Daniel Omolo and Mrs. Persis Omolo, that's my mother. They are both late. And I consider myself to be a normal Kenyan. There isn't so much to hype about me, but I guess I've walked the whole distance from the time I was young to where I am today, with the experience I've had in very many areas. I consider myself to be a very fortunate person in the area of leadership, in the area of mentorship, in the area of pastoral work, in the area of working as a civil servant, in the area of teaching at the university. I think this has given me wide experience, especially dealing with people and all levels of leadership. And I thank God that I've been able to gather enough experience to be able now to be in a position where I can be a mentor.
Wow. That's great. Now, every leadership story begins somewhere. Some are identified by mentors, some are divine, while others were appointed prefects when they're in nursery school. Where did your story begin?
Actually, considering now, looking at my history, I think my leadership experience started when I was very young. Yes, as old as 10 years, as young as 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
But it is not until I was in high school, actually when I was doing my A levels, that I was first recognized as a leader and was made a dorm prefect in our school where we were at Homa Bay Boys Secondary School. That's back in 1970. And I experienced leadership exposure at that point in organizing students, make sure that they're all in the dorm and they're all asleep at the right time. Nobody's left out of the dorm, and nobody has jumped over the fence and gone out at night. So it was quite an experience indeed. But I guess that's where I actually came face to face with the challenges of leadership. And I believe from then on, I've had experience one after another since then.
Wow, that's great. Then you've mentioned something when you're around 10 years old.
Yes.
What is this thing that was a mark in your leadership?
It is very very interesting, adventurous to think, to say the least. But when I was 10 years old, in our village at Gotregea in Siaya, my paternal old grandfather, one fine afternoon, he just picked on me and told me, John, we are come with me. I want us to go somewhere for a walk. Because I was excited, because when an old man like that calls you, one thing I'd come to understand is when you're walking with an old man, there's a lot of eating on the way. So I loved food.
Yeah.
And so I was actually anticipating that some point in our journey there'll be eating. We'll do some, and of course there was eating. I did eat and ate chicken in a village where we were going. But that day left me with an experience that I will never forget. As we settled down in the village, we were playing with the kids, and my grandfather was in the room with the other people. There was a lot of noise coming out of that room. It's later on during the day that I realized I was actually drinking busa. In that village. Yeah, the old man loved his busa.
Yeah.
But I've never seen him drink. This was the first time I've seen him drink. So we played, and at the end of the day, after eating lunch, we went home for some moments, and he came out and then called me and told me, let's go back home. It's late. So I left the kids, and we were having a nice time, but I left them and we set out. I was walking in front of him. Yeah, and I knew he was moving. He was a huge tall guy who was very steady and strong at that time, though he was my grandfather.
Yeah.
So as we moved, I walked in front of him, and I kept following. He was following me. I could hear his footsteps. Now it began to rain was coming. It was going to rain. That's typical at home. Every afternoon there's likely to be rain, especially during the rainy season. So I went briskly walking. We were not talking because the idea was to get home as quickly as we could before the rain falls. So I knew he was following me because I could hear his footsteps. But at some point I heard some noise. It was like a thud, a noise. And when I looked back, I was shocked to find him on the ground. He had fallen.
Mzee was on
the ground. And I got shocked, and I was really shocked. And I wondered what was going on. Then something rang into my mind. Especially the second time, when he fell again, something just came into my mind. So told me he's drunk. It's because he's drunk. Now I had a choice between flight or fight. Situation, but I chose to fight, not to flight. So I didn't run away.
The small boy knew was brave enough.
They're brave enough. Yeah, brave enough. And I think that was quite something with me that I'm not that brave, but that day I was brave. And I stalled, so I waited for him. He took himself up again, picked himself up again, and we started walking again. Then the third time he fell again. And now it was bad because now I was wondering, how are we going to get home?
Yeah.
So something told me, you run. But something told me, no, don't run. This Mzee could be depending on you to get his
direction,
his bearings, to go to, because now it's getting dark, the rain is going to fall, and this Mzee may not find his way home. So something told me, you keep ahead of him, let him see you. So I believe that that was something, the leadership trait in me was giving me putting me up on stage as a leader, to lead this old man, because now he couldn't find his way home. And it's later on when we got home, and that I started kind of going back and reminding myself to think of what could have happened. I never shared this story with anybody. We never talked with the old man again. I never told my father about it. I never told my mother about it. And I never talked to the old man himself about it.
He died without hearing about it.
He died without hearing about it. He didn't know what I thought. He died without knowing what I actually thought. And it's this moment that I'm able to share it. And this is now how many years later, my friend? 60 years later.
Over 60 years later, yeah.
I'm now sharing this story because I came to understand that a leader must lead from the front. A leader must be visible. For those that are following, they must see you clearly so that they be able to find or navigate their way. And I believe as young as I was, my leadership journey began. And I've never looked back. Of course, I don't brag because we have a lot of types of leadership. But I believe for me personally, that encouraged me to place myself in a position where I can lead somebody else.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a unique experience. Now, after being the school captain and controlling the boys in high school, the next stage, I believe you went to college, and did you get any leadership positions at
Yes.
college?
Oh, yeah. That was the beginning. The beginning. I
Yeah.
just talk about the beginning
Yeah.
in high school, in
Uh-huh.
A level, at A levels.
Yeah.
When I was employed after high school, I got employment. I didn't go to university directly, so I got employment. In fact, I was employed in the same school where I did my O levels, because I was the best student
Yeah.
at that time.
So the board admired
So
you.
the headmaster simply, he picked me out, because so when I applied to teach in the school, he called me and he told me, John, yeah, come please. So I was teaching English, I believe, English and geography.
Yeah.
These were my best
Your
subjects.
favorite,
Yeah, English and geography. So I taught English and geography in that class, and I was also class captain. Sorry, I was the captain of the debating club,
Yeah,
in terms of mentoring these kids. That was leadership, and also I believe that I did learn some leadership tips from my fellow teachers who were there.
Yeah.
Some of them taught me, but now they were considering me as a colleague. Very interesting, because that was just a break of 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years for A levels,
So
and
you
I
were
went
still
back again.
you were
to
still
them.
a student.
So I was still a student,
Yeah.
but they recognized me as a leader, and they gave me opportunities in the school. So I was able to do quite a few things for the short time I was there.
Yeah.
Then I was employed by the government to train in my profession, and during this time, I had held different leadership positions in my department where I was, and more so when I got born again, and I became an active Christian. A lot of my seniors recognized that in the office, because they kind of saw and knew me, and I think that made them really recognize that.
Yeah.
So I held some leadership position in the department there. I could be given some responsibility to undertake, and be able to guide and my colleagues, the one I was working with. But the most important place, I think, happened when I was in Holland, when I went to study in Holland. I became the chairman of the Christian Fellowship that year, and that was, to me, that was a big experience.
Wow.
Because we had students from all over the world. Yes, and that fellowship was a very active fellowship. So for a whole year, I was the chairman, and I was able to organize meetings, outdoor meetings, indoor meetings with students. Some of them were trips to visit other areas within Holland, Netherlands, and that, to me, that was good. That really encouraged me, and I began to see something coming out of me that I think I began to appreciate. Yeah, I didn't know how far it would take me, but I believe that it was something good that God was using me for. And a lot of students looked up to me. From other nations, they looked up to me, and they could come and we could sit down and they asked me questions, and I was able to answer them, especially spiritual matters and psychological matters, counseling and helping out and advising those who are away from their homes, and some of them were very lonely when they. So that was it. So that happened, and we came back to Kenya, and I really enjoyed that. Now let me go back a little. Let me just go back a little.
Yeah.
In our church, both when I was in Nairobi and when I was in Nakuru, I was the youth leader in the church. I was the choir leader in the church. So I was able to carry out evangelistic meetings with the young people. I was mentoring them, and some of them are now great preachers. Even here in Nakuru, great men, but they were mentored under my watch, and they know themselves. They really appreciate me. I know that, and I really thank God for them, that God has taken them and they are great men and women today
Wow.
in Nakuru. So leadership has been with me, inside me, and by the grace of God, it's being manifested in many ways. Of course, when I got married, of course, I needed to be a leader. I'm the leader in my home. I'm the head of the home. And when children come along, God bless us with children, I needed to show leadership. And I thank God that by the grace of God, we have lovely kids who have now grown up and married. And I can see myself portrayed in them, that value that they were able to take up for me. Yeah, I can see it in them, and I thank God for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great journey. Now, I'm looking at three things. Now, your grandpa sees a leader in you when you're 10. Your high school teachers see a leader in you in your teenage.
Yeah.
And then you go to Europe, and this multicultural setup of students, they see a leader in you.
Yeah.
So what lesson, what is this unique lesson that you've learned, you know, with relation to people's skills and leadership?
No, experience has been vast, yes. And I think for me, and I want to agree with the great proponent of leadership, that's John C. Maxwell, great writer.
Yeah.
He has written books, and I've read some of them, about valuing people. I think that's something that has really brought me close to the people. When I see value, when I can be able to recognize value and see value in them.
Wow.
And that now cuts across, and I cannot take anybody for granted, because everybody comes packaged, and there's something good in everyone.
Wow.
So I believe my leadership journey has taught me to value people.
That's a unique lesson.
To talk to the little, the small one, and to be able to converse with the great one too. And that's what I've done. Yeah, I've talked to great men, and I've talked to the little men. And I've talked to the youth, I've talked to the women, and I see value as a very great component of leadership.
Wow.
So that's something that I hold dear even today. I can never take anyone for granted. Especially in terms of, say, as a father, sometimes challenges come with our children as they grow up, and some unique challenges come, because I think every family is unique. You may have 6 children, but you find one child is not quite towing the line, and there's some men who normally ask their wives, are you sure this is my son? So, because the other children are okay, but this one is not. Now, I came to learn from my own personal experience, never throw away any child. Don't give up on that child. Every child has a potential. When they're young, you need to be patient with them. You need to be persistent. Something good will come out of it. Pray with them and talk to them. And when you're holding on, something good, they'll have a breakthrough. Because when you throw them away, then they suffer rejection, and they may not come out, the best that will not come out of them the way it should be. Because there is potential in each child. So that's part of leadership trait that I learned early enough. And I can be able to confidently say today, do not give up on anyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Maybe before you take a break, I want you to think about the journeys you've had. I believe you've traveled far and abroad in pursuit for education and,
ministry.
Ministry too. And I think leadership in different cultures is handled differently. But I believe you've been able to find the common denominators, among the continents.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to discuss that after the break.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Leadership. Don't take a leave.
Don't press that dial.
Yeah. Wow. Now, traveling across nations as a student and as an upcoming leader, what can you comment on leadership models across this culture? You know, and why were you unique in all these cultures?
Leadership has many facets, and I think the best thing to conclude in this kind of scenario is that leadership fits within different contexts. So there's the African context, there's a European context, and there's American context. So we cannot talk of leadership as if it's one package. I'm saying this because traveling through Europe and comparing Netherlands with France, for example, you find different cultures, and you also identify different models of leadership that fit within that setting. So if I say that as a Kenyan, I want to go and contest a political position or leadership position in France, first I must first of all convert my thinking into French. I must understand, and then how French people act and how they react, how do they contextualize issues. Yeah, so I believe, and this has taught me lessons, especially within, particularly for Africa, where I come from, because African culture, although diverse, I think we have a lot of similarities, because I believe our origins are not really far apart.
Yeah, we share.
So there's some things we share. So, for example, Austria, Vienna, you find that they are doing their things differently in terms of leader. I experience a lot of differences in the way they handle their things, the way they take things, because some of those democracies have actually matured and they have influenced the mode of leadership. Coming back home to Kenya, to Africa, I am seriously becoming very, what would I say? Some would consider me to be very critical of the way we are leading, our leadership, model leadership. As I said the other day, that somewhere in a forum, in a similar forum, that we are suffering or we are experiencing difficulties today simply because of poor leadership. Again, going by John C. Maxwell, that leadership rises and falls with leadership. Everything rises and falls with leadership. I place leadership squarely at the center of our issues. Bad leadership will bring bad outcomes. And by bad leadership, I mean poor leadership. But good leadership will definitely bring out good outcomes. Now, if I may quote what the scripture is telling us about leadership, and it says in the words of King Solomon, in the Proverbs, that when the righteous are in authority, people rejoice. But when the wicked or the unrighteous are in authority, people mourn. People cry out. Now that already tells you, it's very easy to tell whether leadership is a good leadership and if a leadership is bad by just looking at the outcomes. Are people rejoicing? If people in that country, in that nation, in that county are rejoicing, then it means that the leadership is good. But if people are complaining and crying day and night, then we need to look at the leadership. Now, so that's one way we can measure. So it's important when you look at various cross-cultural platforms where different leaders are placed, in Africa particularly, we can tell where there's bad leadership in Africa. Because there's always tumult, there are wars, there are skirmishes, there are conflicts constantly. You wonder, why can't they stop? It's because something is wrong at the top. Now, you are talking about